makes most women start a business? Is it passion, money, or freedom? Welcome to Female Founders, the podcast that takes you behind the scene with women who are founders and CEOs to help you start and scale a successful business of your own. I am your host, Nagelia de Ravin. Hello everyone, welcome to another episode of Female Founders. Today I will be having a conversation with Nicole Patton. She is the founder of DrivePark Consulting, an IT career coaching practice. She is an accomplished IT professional from Maryland who mentor Black youth and college students about the importance of IT careers. Nicole also provides coaching services to individual clients and companies and prepares her clients to navigate career transitions with a support network, knowledge, and competence. Good morning, Nicole. Thank you for taking the time to have this conversation with me. Can you tell us about your journey in IT and what inspired you to go in a career in this field?
Oh, well, first of all, thank you for having me. My journey in IT has been a very interesting one. So my IT journey really struggled, actually started when I got my first computer and I took it apart.
You took it apart?
I took it apart. I wanted to know, how does this thing work? I was very fascinated with how, it worked. And from there, I realized that, you have an innate ability to work with IT, right? Just by having the confidence, I think, to take something apart and then try to figure out how to put it back together. And so I went through school. I focused on at first web design. As we all know, there's many different facets of IT. So I started doing, designing on websites. And then I went to college and I said, well, I also like people. How do I do both of those things? And at the time, computer science was really the only thing that was popping. And I said, well, I don't want to do that. How can I merge my people skills with my IT skills? And I found a school that did IT management at the time. And that allowed me to learn telecommunications, website development, everything about technology, and then the people aspect of it, because I think that people forget that it's people and technology, right? It's not technology alone. And so I continued through school. I got my master's in IT management as well. And I went along and did an MBA and focusing on systems and analytics. And that was my career, how I started my journey and just kind of solidifying what I knew I was really good at with education.
But did you end up working in the corporate world within your career as well, or?
Yes, actually, I did. I got really lucky. So when I first started in my undergraduate degree, I applied for a role with Lockheed Martin. And I got the job on the spot as a help desk analyst for actually a classified environment. And so I was able to get my clearance. I was working on a help desk. I was working with a lot of senior, folks. And I saw a path, I think, at that point to IT. And I worked with Lockheed for 8 years. And what I did was I just rotated around the company. That was my strategy. Okay, what else can Lockheed show me? So I went from help desk to desktop support. Then I went to completely their corporate environment, supporting only the executives of Lockheed Martin and learning more there. And then essentially becoming a manager on one of the largest contracts that Lockheed had with the Department of Housing and Urban Development.
Wow, this is awesome.
Yeah.
So, but why IT?
Why IT? Why not? It's funny you asked me that question. When my dad dropped me off at school, he said, "You want to do IT?" There weren't a lot of women doing IT. It was an anomaly. I went to a really small school, and there's probably 3 women in a lot of my classes. So to me, it was always, why not? There aren't enough women here, so I should be doing it, right? This is something that a lot of people are not doing. There aren't a lot of people like me doing it. And I think that fascinated me even more by being part of a trailblazer group, right? Wanting to be a part of that and, putting my face in spaces where you don't see them a lot.
So pretty much you wanted to paving the path for other women to say, hey, I want to be an IT too.
Yeah, exactly.
I love that. So can you tell us Well, let's go a little bit back. You mentioned experience and lack of diversity in your job experiences. So how did that shape the way you see the industry and which is also lead you to create your own company after that?
Yeah. So one of the things that I found about being alone in a lot of these spaces is not a lot of people have the same experiences as you, right? As I mentioned, my trajectory through IT was with a lot of intention, not a lot of handouts. I didn't have the network. I didn't know really who to talk to. I didn't have a mentor, right? And so I focused on really being intentional about the spaces that I wanted to be in. And I tried to navigate alliances. That's really what I focused on by being kind of the only person in these spaces. Who can I network with? Who can I learn from? And that required me to step out of my comfort zone, right? To network with individuals who didn't look like me, right? To gain
Yeah.
experience from people who didn't have the same experiences as I did. So it was an element of me having to be open, right? To not being naive to my space, right? Knowing that I'm the only person, but also realizing that I can still find community within these spaces as well, especially if I'm being intentional about the companies that I'm joining.
Joining. So can you tell us about the services that Drive Park Consultant provides? And
Yeah,
go
absolutely.
ahead.
Yeah,
Go ahead.
absolutely. So what I found is, a lot of the things that I've done in my career that's maybe really successful has been a career development aspect, right? Where I focused on how do I keep my career going forward and not get comfortable and be stagnant. And so I thought of, how can I help other people do what I've done in order to be successful, especially in underrepresented groups, because there aren't a
Yes.
lot of us there, right? And so I came up with the idea of DrivePark Consulting, and kind of the name is, driving forward, even sometimes when we feel like we want to be parked, right? We're so comfortable where we're at. I just want to sit here. And essentially what we do is we provide career coaching services to individual clients and also companies that are looking to help underrepresented groups get into IT. That could be data analytics, cybersecurity, IT support roles, web development, software development, any IT related position. And one of the things that I focus on with Drive Park is an individual approach, right? There's a lot of cookie cutter approaches to coaching. And what I focus on is that individual aspect. Well, who are you as an individual? What
Hmm.
things do you want to get out of your career? How do you think you should go about it? How do you want to transition? And really help people understand their skills, right? Not minimalize them for the experiences they have. Help them create goals with actions so that they can stay accountable to the things that they're trying to achieve. And then ultimately help them with their resume, help them with interviewing, help them with their job search strategy, and help people get jobs at the end.
That's the biggest part, getting the job.
Right, getting the job. That's the best part at the end of the day.
So you pretty much you work with individuals. So for someone that's wanted to get into IT, they can come to you. You'll support them, but also you can work with the company to actually get people into IT within the company itself.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'll tell you a couple of organizations that I'm working for today with Drive Park, and one is Correlation One, and they're a training organization, and I work with them as a career success coach, and their clients are Amazon warehouse employees, which is a very
Mm.
different group that I've ever worked with
Yes.
before, right? But they are focusing on trying to get in data analytics careers. And so my job is to help them with their training to be able to achieve the dream of getting entry level data analytics careers. The second organization I work for is Hacking the Workforce. Hacking the
Ooh.
Workforce is a great name, great organization. It's a nonprofit that's really focused on the queer and trans people of color community and trying to help them with their ability to get into cybersecurity. And my role as a coach is the same thing, very individualized approach, but also adding the element of how do you navigate spaces where you're the only one, which
Right.
really impacts these QTI POC communities. And that's what we're really teaching them as part of Drive Park is how do you, when you get that security job, here's how to navigate that space. Here's how you advocate for yourself. And here's how you pick companies that are really integral into that DEI strategy to make sure that you're comfortable and you're learning at the same time.
So now, do you find less Black into IT?
Yes, yes, absolutely. Yes, absolutely. There is I'll tell you a story. I was working at a very prominent law firm here in New York as their associate director of engineering. And I was looking for two positions, and I had been looking for almost about a year. And I had probably seen over 100 resumes, talked to over 50 people, and probably plus that. And I probably had 10 Black candidates, 10, right?
Wow.
In my next role as a director at another company, tech company, I interviewed hundreds of people. And the only people that came to me, I had 5 Black. Now, what I say is, despite that, I still had a mission to have a diverse team. So every, person of color or Black person that came across my desk, I wanted to talk to, right? And I can successfully say I was at least able to hire 2 Black people, on my team, 1 female and 1 male on my team, just to show that it is possible, right? But it's only possible when we're sitting in these spaces and we recognize that there's this huge gap. There's a huge gap, and there's not a lot of talent out there. And I also don't think companies know where to find this talent as well. And that's why we don't see a lot of Black people in IT.
But I think if you end up with 10, I'm thinking only 1 is a woman.
Exactly. It's even crazier. I've always been on teams where I'm the only woman, and it's fascinating because I always have found that teams with women have it's just a totally different environment, a totally different experience. Women bring so many different ideas and values to the table that I don't think a lot of people think about or even consider or appreciate, to be honest.
Actually, no, they don't. I feel like they appreciate it after we leave.
Yeah, exactly. It's like, okay, I'm leaving now, and no, don't go because now you need me.
Now you need me. You could have told me that 10 years ago that I've been sitting here feel worthless.
Exactly.
Oh my goodness. So can you tell us about some of the challenges faced by underrepresented groups in the IT industry, especially Black women?
Yeah, so I would say one of the biggest challenges, and this is just from my own experience, is being heard. I think that's a really defining moment when you realize that, I forgot where I am, right? And some of these are also microaggressions that happen in the environment, especially for Black women. And I've sat in meetings where I've said something and, a colleague who is not Black can say the exact same thing and it resonates with everybody, right? And I've had that happen.
Sound familiar?
Yeah, it happens a lot, right? And I think that, one way that I've navigated that is by actually pulling people to the side, right? And having a conversation about the fact that, hey, I shared that same thing. Was there something different in their tone or their approach that made you feel like it resonated more than when I said it, right? Because I think that sometimes a lot of us sit on our hands, right? We don't want to be the angry Black person. We don't want to, cause conflict, especially in corporate spaces. But I also think that because we sit on our hands, people are not aware of their biases. That sometimes is unconscious. And so sometimes we have to bring attention to that, right? We have to say, hey, I literally said the same thing. Was my tone different? The way that I described it, was it different? How did that not resonate with you when I said it, right? And coming from a place of, again, trying to understand your colleagues and your peers. And I think that for me, I've always known in their response where I stood with that organization, right? And then I make the decision about, maybe this is not the place for me. I move on to somewhere else, or it's a very fruitful conversation and we're able to move forward about how my opinion really does matter in these spaces.
So, but you work with so many different organizations and some of them you stay with them for a long time. So why did you decide to start your own company?
I decided to start my own company because there's a sense of when you're working with an organization, it's their mission, right? It's not your mission, right? And I've always viewed working at organizations as a way for me to learn, not necessarily stay there forever. I'm here to learn from them. I'm here to absorb all the lessons that they have learned and have grown from, and how do I adopt that to do something that is more fulfilling to me? I'm a firm believer that all of us are better at more than one thing. And I know that I'm better at more than one thing. And if I focus my attention on, oh, Nicole, you do so many great things for organizations, you're a really good leader, and that's all you're going to do. Yeah, but what am I doing for my community? Right? I'm sitting up here. What about the other things that I could be doing to support folks that I want to see go past me? Right? That's our purpose, is not to, have that crabs in a barrel mentality, right? It's to reach the peak and then find some other people to pass it by. So that's really what motivated me to start my own company and to work with companies who are trying to do this very thing. Because to me, I think that is your legacy. That is what you leave behind. It's way more important than the accolades that you can get at organizations that may not really be supporting your community at the end of the day.
So would you say that that mission of yours, that vision, that legacy was always in the back of your head since the day that you take that job where you are working in the front desk as an IT?
Yep, absolutely.
Is that the reason you move around so much to learn almost anything within the company?
Yep, that's why I move around, right? I really focused on, again, absorbing all that I could from an organization. I got my clearance, so I know what that experience is like. So I use these organizations to help provide the story for the people that I'm working for, right? You have a lot of people out here saying, oh, you can, get a 6-figure IT job just by listening to me. And they have no story or no footprint into any of these spaces. Right?
I heard that a lot.
And so for me, me moving around to company to experience to role really helps me tell the story of what it is to be a true technologist. I can talk to you about any part of technology and what that looks like. And I think that just only adds value to our community at the end of the day, especially women, right? I think women, there's such a focus on coding these days and security. There's so many other aspects of IT that women could thoroughly enjoy and have a really great impact on, if they only knew about it. And so I kind of say, hey, I've done the surveying of the land for you, right? Here, ask me anything about, my experiences and where that may take you.
I like that because, a lot of time I receive these emails, I can help you make 6 figures. I actually even received one that said I can make you make 10 figures. I didn't know that was a thing. That was new to me when I heard that one. But I just hope that people don't fall for this. I'm not saying money is not important. It is. Of course, we need money to survive. But at the end of the day, I feel like the people you touch, the people you help, is what really makes everything got value. I mean, like, for me, when I help another woman, I feel very helpful. Like I did something that's probably will help the next generation of women. Instead of me just packing up my pocket is full, but really I didn't leave anything behind for anyone else, but just for my pocket, which I can take with when I'm dead. So,
exactly.
I don't know.
Exactly. And that's one thing that I, even when I was working at Lockheed, I found, I need to talk to students. And so I purposely would speak to after school, girls groups to talk to them about IT and what could be done in those spaces and kind of open their eyes up to the possibilities that you can make it. And, I also think that too, there are women in IT, but I think the stresses of kind of wearing the S on our chest in these organizations, it gets tiresome. And then we find something else to do. We leave the field. And so that's also another reason why there's a gap. And so, I say, hey, I've been in this game 17 years. And that's really, unheard of, especially for a lot of the areas that I've been through and matriculated through. But I think it's also, you're the testament that it is possible and people can look up to you and want to hear your story. And I always say, if I can help one person, I'm good. Right. I'm not looking to help everybody. If I can help one woman, one conversation at a time, one article at a time, I feel like I'm doing my part. Right. And I think that speaks more volumes into exactly what you said, was just patting your own pockets. At the end of the day, that gets old. It's very tiresome for me anyway. And that shouldn't be your only motivation.
I don't think so too. But also as a career coach, what skills and qualities do you think that that most really important for someone to be successful in IT industry?
Yeah. So, for me, it's definitely there's technical skills and there's people skills. And I really merge the two together. Right. And so, what I really help my clients understand is there are technical aspects to all your experiences, right? Tell me about the tools that you're using, Microsoft, Google, Slack, all the technology that we have today, right, in order to get things accomplished. But then there's the other aspect that I think people forget about are the people skills, right? How are you utilizing that technology to make something better for someone else? Or make an experience better for someone else, or make it easier for someone else, right? And I've always had that approach because I worked very briefly with the Department of Education and worked on their accessible technology for the FAFSA website to help individuals with disabilities have the same experience filling out a FAFSA form. And to me, that's what technology really is. How are you bridging that gap and making sure that people, right, are central to that? And how are you helping people? How are you collaborating with individuals? And those are the skills that I think a lot of us really forget about when it comes down to technology. We're so focused on being the geek, the smartest person in the room. But if everybody in the room doesn't understand what you're saying, you've lost your group, right?
That's for sure.
You've lost your group. They don't know what you're talking about. And I think it's really important to be able to communicate, your technology ideas and your skills and whatever that you're working on in a way that people can understand.
That's the number one thing. And sometimes we are in such a hurry, we forget about it.
Mm-hmm. Yep, absolutely. Absolutely. And, I always, even with, when I work with individuals about their resume and, their interviews, it's, well, tell me what you did. How did you do it? Why were you doing it? What was important about it? Right? You told me you used Excel, but why was that important? What were you using it for? What was it? What kind of data did it contain? What did you do with it? Did you present it? Did anybody make a decision off of it? These are the things that, really show a skill when you're trying to transition into an IT environment, right? To show that you're multifaceted, to show that you understand technology, but you also understand how that technology enables people to do better.
To do better. So now can you walk us through the DrivePark approach and how it helped candidates stand out in the job market?
Yeah, so DrivePark is it's in its infancy, I would say, but how we really help people stand out is by doing this thing that I call figuring out what your transferable skills are, right? And I think that a lot of people are intimidated by moving into IT because they've never been in IT before, right? And so they say, oh, well, my experience is X, is not anything IT related. And one of the things that I walk a lot of my clients through, which to me is, what are your transferable skills? Are you able to tell a story? Have you simplified the complex for someone? How do you work with data? How do you work in a team? And have you presented anything to anyone? Right. And walking them through telling me stories about their experience and having them realize they have experience that is applicable to an IT job, right?
They just
These are
didn't
the
know
type of
it.
things that, yep. But they have to know it, right? And so it's my job as a coach to walk them through and say, give me an example of when you've done this. Oh, I work on Excel spreadsheets and that's my job. Okay, tell me more about that. I'm really interested. I'm really curious. And when they start talking and I start putting together what they're actually doing, and we start looking at jobs and the job saying exactly the story that they told me, but it's just in an IT space, then the light bulb goes off, right? And there are some elements of IT that require certifications and things of that nature, right? We know that that's also a part of it as well as upskilling, but there's also an element to upskilling and then also knowing your own experience and your skills and being confident in them, right? I actually read an article the other day that talked about most Black women or just Black people in general will not apply for a job if they don't think that they have all the skills.
Wow. I
They
think
won't
only women will do that.
they won't even apply, right? And so for me, it's like, no, you should apply. Because the majority of the jobs that I applied for, I literally said, I don't know how to do some of this stuff, but I'm going to apply anyway. And I got the job, right? Because I was able to really have stories about what my experience was and how that it would be an asset to that company, right? And that's what's important.
So now, how do you see the future of IT evolving in terms of diversity, equity, and inclusion?
Oh my goodness. Oh, that's a big question. I don't know. I think that IT I think a lot of technology companies need help, to be honest. I think they need help finding people. I think our DEI strategies don't really create the pipelines that they need to create. And I feel like there should be bridges between these organizations that have these elaborate DEI strategies with really small organizations that are, you know, funneling underrepresented people, right? As I mentioned before, Hacking the Workforce and Correlation One are organizations that are really dedicated to this type of mission. And how are organizations partnering with these orgs in order to actually get people into jobs, right? And so for me, DEI is, and IT is more than a talk track. We actually have to start doing, right? The landscape has not changed from when I've been in the field, 17 years. So we're talking about it, which is great because we weren't talking about it before. I think now we need to start doing. There needs to be action to actually get people in these seats, to get people these roles, so that we can actually start closing this gap. And that's what I see is IT. And I think that if we do that, then we'll start having a little bit more diversity in our technology that is released to the public. I think right
I
now
agree.
our technology is very, rose-colored glasses, very single track minded. And I think until we start, partnering with groups that have access to these groups, then we'll start seeing the technology changes that we want to actually see in the public spaces, in policy spaces, and beyond.
I think also to one of the things might be to start with the young ones, with the teenagers, with the young kids. You'll be surprised when you go to a Black community how many young kids you're gonna find that smart as hell when it comes to IT. So might want to start there.
It's very true, and I think that there's so many opportunities for, community centers that have kids, after school programs. Are these organizations really reaching out and saying, hey, we'll do this? And I know some are doing it, but I think it needs to be a mission for a lot of organizations to actually do this. And you're absolutely right. I started young. That's
And,
how it happened to me. And technology is in front of them at like toddler age at this point. So they know what technology is, they like consuming it, but we need to start letting these younger generations understand the how technology works, to get them interested in what technology is actually doing instead of always just being the consumers of it, to be able to use technology to make difference in people's lives and create a more, diverse space for people to come.
I agree with you on that. So now, how can someone reach out to you for your services?
So you can reach out to me at driveparkconsulting.com. And that's the best way to reach me, or Nicole, Nicole, at driveparkconsulting.com.
So, what advice would you give to someone who is interested in pursuing a career in IT but don't know where to start?
So, my first advice is to research.
Yes.
What I find is, a lot of people don't know what to look for, right? They don't know what jobs are out there. And so use Google. Google is your friend, right? Start looking at, what are some of the top jobs in IT right now, right? To start kind of understanding the landscape of what is out there and, what type of roles you might be actually interested in. Because I think a lot of people don't really know what roles are out there and what they actually contain. And then once you start searching, you may find, oh, an IT coordinator, didn't know that was a thing. I might want to do that. Help desk analyst. Oh, this actually sounds interesting. I can leverage some skills on that. Even business analyst, right? Or IT project manager. Start searching for terms and really learning what is out there and what are some of these companies asking for from a roles and responsibilities standpoint. And then the light bulbs will start going off, and put them in a group and say, hey, these 3 jobs seem kind of interesting. What are some of the pathways for me to actually get there?
Great advice. And I think that I hope that we get more people into IT, more women into IT, more Black. Actually, we need that. We need the more diverse. And it's unfortunate that a lot of great jobs out there, for some reason, we don't have a lot of Black into them. And that's something we need to change. And I know that talking about it is a start, but for me, I don't like to talk about it. I just like to get it done. So stop talking and start doing.
It's like, yes, we know there's a gap. What are we doing about it?
Start working on it.
Yep, that's essentially what I'm doing with this consulting company. This is my action towards that. This is how we're doing and helping people get to that point and fighting all of the syndromes that come with, transitioning into IT.
Well, I cannot thank you enough, Nicole, for giving me the chance to talk to you, but also for supporting the Black community, the underrepresented communities to join IT, to be a part of this. Something big that's coming out of it. And then we need to be in it. And also we need our children, our great-grandchildren, all of them to be a part of it, because it's fascinating when it's come to IT, and technology itself is just awesome. And I know that there's a lot of Black kids out there that's smart. I met a few of them, and they are super smart. You'll be surprised. And when I see people talking about how Black is not smart when it comes to technology, I'm like, you're talking about the one group. Because you should go to a Black community and start learning from them, because they know things you don't even know. They can hack your computer in a second. So
exactly.
I thank you for helping them to be able for them to find a job and to see the skills that they already have can be used, and they can use that to create a career for themselves, and they don't have to go do something else if they're already good in technology.
Yep, absolutely. Absolutely.
Thank you for listening to Female Founders Podcast. That's it for this week's episode. Be sure to follow us on your favorite podcast app or connect with us on womel.com so that you don't miss our next episode. See you next time. Bye for now.